It starts like a whisper, a soft realization in the back of the mind, the kind of thought that arrives quietly, without permission, and refuses to leave. It's not urgent, not loud, but persistent. You glance around the room. The furniture, the cabinets, the papers stacked on counters, the drawers that no longer close, and you suddenly wonder, when did all of this get here? More importantly, why is it still here? There's a powerful truth many people discover later in life, not shouted in self-help books, not found in flashy social media reels, but quietly learned through living. You don't need more space, you need less stuff, and when that truth finally sinks in, really sinks in, it does something extraordinary. It transforms how you see everything. Not just the things in your house, but the things in your heart, because the process of letting go of things is the process of letting go of stories, and not every story is worth keeping. There's something sacred in the act of opening a drawer you haven't touched in years. It's like archaeology. The top layer always seems familiar: batteries, keys, coupons, pens that don't work anymore. But dig deeper, and you find things you forgot existed. A birthday card from someone who's gone. A watch with a cracked face, notes scribbled in handwriting you no longer recognize. There's emotion in the layers. But here's the hard truth. Emotion is not the same as value. Yes, that note from your child's teacher meant something once. That scarf reminded you of that winter. That broken mug used to belong to your father. But what is it doing for you now? Is it bringing peace or just taking up space? The most effective changes often begin with a single, strong question. What am I ready to be free from? Freedom doesn't always come in grand, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it looks like a single trash bag filled with papers you no longer need. Sometimes it's donating 6 sweaters that haven't fit since 2008. Sometimes it's admitting that a bookshelf filled with untouched books is not a badge of intelligence. It's a graveyard of good intentions, and none of those intentions are stronger than the clarity that comes from simplicity. There's a beautiful kind of energy that appears once you decide to let go. Suddenly, rooms feel lighter. Corners that once collected dust become sources of light. Cabinets become spaces of intention, not chaos. And for the first time in a long time, your home starts to reflect your current life, not just your past. You stop keeping things just in case. You stop saying, I might use this someday. You realize how many somedays have passed already, and how little those items did for you in the meantime. A person once said, you don't own your stuff owns you. And it's true. Every item you keep requires energy. To maintain, to dust, to store, to look at, and mentally decide not to deal with again. But imagine if you owned only what served you, what helped you, what lifted your life. Imagine waking up and every item you touched had a purpose, a reason, a place. That isn't fantasy. That is entirely possible, but it starts with a shift in mindset. Not from hoarding to minimalism, but from clutter to clarity. Clarity doesn't mean emptiness, it means purpose. The goal isn't to have nothing, the goal is to have only what matters. And here's the hidden gift of that goal. The less you own, the more clearly you see what you truly need. We live in a world that worships accumulation, but in the quiet wisdom of later life, something becomes obvious. You cannot take any of it with you, but you can make sure you're not carrying it all until the end. There's a moment sometimes while sorting, sometimes while tossing, when you laugh, you find an object that once meant everything, and now it just feels like stuff. And that laugh, that's freedom arriving. That's your body releasing the weight of emotional attachments that no longer serve you. That's your future stepping forward, while your past politely steps aside. This is not about being cold, it's about being honest. And honesty, at this stage of life, is a kind of rebellion. A rebellion against the what-ifs that once controlled your choices. A rebellion against guilt, against the false comfort of chaos. There's a calm that comes when the surfaces are clear, when your kitchen counter isn't crowded, when your closet only holds clothes that fit and feel right, when your bathroom cabinet isn't a pharmacy of expired products. That calm isn't just in the room, it's in your mind. There is peace in simplicity. And it's peace you earn. Not by buying something, but by letting go of what no longer belongs. You don't need an occasion to begin. You don't need a season, a checklist, or a Pinterest board. You need a moment of truth. A moment when you're ready to stop living in the museum of your former life and start shaping your next chapter. A new chapter that's not about loss, but about space. Space for the things you love, the people who matter, and the peace you've always deserved. And that begins with one choice. What will you keep? What will you release? And what will you finally allow yourself to outgrow? Sometimes it begins in silence. Not the quiet of a room, but the silence in the soul. The kind that hums beneath your skin when you realize you've been holding too much for too long. And not just in your hands, but in your memory, in your decisions, in your daily routine. Every item around you once carried a reason, but those reasons, they change. Because you have changed. There was a time you kept everything just in case. That was before you realized that the real burden wasn't the objects, it was the weight they left in your mind. That drawer filled with tangled cords. That box filled with yellowing paper. That shelf crammed with unread books. These aren't items, they're decisions, unfinished, delayed, avoided. But what if you made the decision now? What if you finished them, not by completing them, but by releasing them? There is a rhythm to release. You don't hear it at first. At first, it's clumsy. A half-hearted attempt to drop something you no longer need. A pause, a hesitation, maybe even guilt. But then something shifts. You let go of one thing, and the world doesn't end. In fact, it begins to feel lighter, and that one thing turns into 2, then 3, then a drawer, then a box, then a shelf. You begin to feel something unexpected. Momentum. And momentum is the secret nobody tells you about. It's not motivation. It's not inspiration. It's forward motion, born out of honesty. The moment you say, "This doesn't serve me," and trust yourself enough to act on it, you feel your breath deepen, your thoughts slow, your mood shift, because your surroundings are finally beginning to match your soul. You are no longer decorating the past. You are making space for what's next. And what's next doesn't need clutter to arrive. It needs clarity. We tend to keep things because we think they make us who we are. But what if who we are isn't made of things? What if we are made of stories, and strength, and moments? Not china cabinets, not VHS tapes, not clothes that don't fit. You are not your high school yearbook. You are not the third set of guest towels. You are not the instruction manual for a toaster you replaced 8 years ago. You are not what you keep. You are what you live. Some items beg to stay. They whisper in your ear, "Remember when?" And sometimes you do, and it's beautiful, and you smile. But a memory is not a responsibility. You can remember and still let go. You can honor a moment without housing it forever, because the truth is, no object holds the past. You do, in your heart, in your blood, in your soul, and that cannot be boxed. Eventually, the practice of release becomes something more. It becomes joy. Joy in empty shelves. Joy in quiet spaces. Joy in a drawer that opens easily. Joy in not needing a reason to smile, because now, even silence feels meaningful. Even the corners feel alive. You begin to look around and see possibility again. Not just in your home, but in your life. That book you meant to write, that class you meant to take, that letter you meant to send. All those intentions that were buried beneath stuff, they rise again, because now they have room. It's strange, the power of a single drawer, one shelf, one dusty corner. Not the whole room, not the house, just one small, quiet pocket of your life where things were placed and forgotten. And when you finally decide to open it, not just physically, but emotionally, you open a door inside yourself to. It's never just the objects. It's the expectations they carry. The knitting kit you swore you'd use when you retired. The old camera you thought you'd take on every trip. The boxes of cards and letters from people who've changed, moved, or disappeared. We hold on because it feels safer than releasing the fantasy we had for ourselves. But when you let go of the fantasy, what remains is freedom. Because now, you get to create a new vision. One based on today. One shaped by who you are, not who you thought you had to be. It's easy to think letting go is loss. But sometimes, letting go is love. Love for your peace. Love for your time. Love for your energy. Imagine walking into your kitchen and every item has a reason. Every drawer opens smoothly. Every cabinet brings relief, not dread. That's not minimalism. That's self-respect, because what you allow into your space reflects what you allow into your mind. And the clearer your space becomes, the softer your thoughts become too. One day, you open your closet, and something clicks. You don't need 10 coats. You don't need the pair of shoes that pinch but look nice. You don't need the dress you wore to an event 10 years ago. What you need is space. What you need is air. What you need is ease. And that need, it's not indulgent. It's intelligent, because you're not living for the past. You're living for the now, and the now deserves better than being weighed down. You begin to look at objects differently. You stop asking, "What if I need this?" You start asking, "What if I never needed it to begin with?" You stop saying, "This was expensive." You start saying, "Is it costing me peace now?" You stop looking at your things as investments. You start looking at them as decisions. And decision by decision, you reclaim your space. Not out of frustration, but out of fierce, gentle clarity. People will ask, "Don't you miss those things?" And maybe you will, but only briefly. Because the memory lives inside you, not in the vase, not in the paper, not in the drawer. You will remember your mother's perfume. You will remember your child's laughter. You will remember the song that played at your wedding, even if the objects are gone, because memory is stronger than clutter, and you are stronger than both. There is a silence that comes after release, not emptiness, not loneliness, but a silence that feels like exhaling after years of holding your breath. You stand in a room you've walked through 1,000 times, but suddenly it's different, not because the furniture has changed, not because you've redecorated, but because your relationship with it has shifted. Everything you see now has a purpose, a place, a reason. And for the first time in a long time, nothing is yelling at you to be dealt with. You realize you were never looking for order. You were looking for rest, and now, rest is what you find. You sit in your chair, and you don't scan the room for unfinished business. You walk into your kitchen, and the counters don't accuse you. You open your closet, and the clothes aren't reminders of who you used to be. You have created a sanctuary, not by adding, but by subtracting everything that no longer reflected your truth. What happens next is subtle. You start to sleep better, you start to smile more, you start to feel a softness return to your thoughts. You feel light, because you lost something, but because you gained yourself back. The you that isn't buried beneath projects. The you that isn't hidden under guilt. The you that isn't overwhelmed by just in case. And in that return, something sacred happens. You begin to dream again. Dreams don't thrive in chaos. They need space. And now, you have it. You write again. You paint again. You walk longer. You call old friends. You find yourself lingering in the sunlight, savoring a cup of tea, reading more slowly. The clock hasn't changed. But you have, and what a beautiful thing that is. Others may not understand your choices. They may ask, why are you getting rid of that? But they don't see what you see. They don't feel what you feel. You are not discarding things. You are reclaiming peace. And peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It whispers through a room that feels lighter. It hums through shelves that no longer sag. It glows in your chest when you wake and nothing weighs you down. This journey is not about less. It's about more. More presence, more breath, more space, more clarity, more joy, and maybe, just maybe, more of you.